Peter Brown has been a part of Redemption Hill for many years now. He has become an inspiration to me to pursue a life of prayerfulness more seriously, and also to pursue engaging relational outreach with higher intentionality. Peter himself has been investing relationally with many dozens of students at a local middle school. And recently, God has broken through in power in bringing about an incredible spiritual response. As Peter was telling me this story, I thought everyone in church needs to hear this. And when Robert heard the story, he invited Peter to share in a recent worship service on the platform. So we have captured that and are eager to bring it here to this format as episode 2 of Gospel Conversations. We urge you to listen all the way through and be blessed and challenged and encouraged by this.
As I stood in a middle school band room in front of 100 junior high students, I closed my eyes and tried to listen to the Lord. And I again came to the conclusion, it's time. I'm really excited to get to share a story that happened a little over a month ago. But before I do, let me give you a little backstory. For the last 2 years, I've been working at a public middle school. I started as an after-school program leader and then became a substitute teacher for the last year and a half. And it was certainly not what I was expecting to be my first job out of college, but I can pretty clearly see that the Lord sent me there, and there's been an abundance of fruitful ministry opportunities. As a result of prayer, both of my own and other Christian teachers who've been praying over that school for 15 years, and the willingness to just take some risks, the Lord has opened door after door to share the gospel, often during breaks, during lunch, honestly, often during class itself. God has just been so faithful to give ministry opportunities to me. Perhaps the most significant of those ministry opportunities has come in the form of a Christian club. Every Thursday, I get the opportunity to stand in front of a band room full of junior high students, and during lunch, preach the gospel, preach straight out of the word to whoever chooses to come. And over the last year, God has slowly grown that club from about maybe 30 or 40, maybe 50 on average, to now we have about 80 kids coming on average. We're often turning kids away because we just don't have enough room because these kids keep coming. And about a month ago, the Lord whispered to my soul, it's time. Let me give you some more context for that. I went on the Cambodia mission trip about 2 months ago, and before I went, I took about a day to pray and listen to the Lord and open up to what he might want to say to me about the Cambodia trip. And the one phrase that came to my heart was, it's time. I began to interpret that as, it's time for me to revive, or for God to revive my hope that I will actually get to see people saved. Because by God's grace, he's helped me to share the gospel with hundreds of people in a variety of different settings, but very rarely have I actually seen someone give their life to Jesus. So I think I've become kind of cynical. I've held on to some doubts. Am I really gonna get to see the fruit? And through the Cambodia trip, God worked a revival of hope and faith in me, largely through me just getting to see people over and over again give their life to Jesus and getting to be the one who, in at least 15 people's lives, got to lead them in a profession of faith. So I came away from that trip with this phrase, it's time for revived hope and faith. Now I jump ahead to that moment I was speaking of at the beginning. I was prepping, well, actually, I had decided that this one Christian club, I was gonna go and just kind of open to the Lord and try to listen and see what he would have me say to teach these kids. And as I was driving over there, I heard the Lord whisper in my heart, it's time. So I stood in silence, waited for the Lord right before I began speaking, and again came to the conclusion, yes, it's time to go for it. So I told them a story from Cambodia of a man who we met way out in a remote village who had heard about God. He knew God was real and answered prayers. He had learned some things about Jesus, but hadn't yet come to a place where he fully understood the gospel and gave his life to Jesus. And I told the kids, I think there are some of you who have been coming to Christian Club week after week, who know God's real, who know God answers prayers, who've heard some things about Jesus, but haven't yet fully understood the story of God and given over your life to him. And I think for some of you today, it's time. So after sharing the gospel once again in a different form, I told them, okay guys, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to do something that I've never done yet at Christian Club, because I tend to be pretty slow to do this. I said, you know what? I'm gonna give you an opportunity right now to respond. So I read Romans 10. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So I said, if you want to call on the name of the Lord, said something like this, if you want to come profess Jesus, I want you to come up front, in front of everyone, all your friends will see, and I will lead you in a prayer or stating that Jesus is your Lord. And then I waited. And one girl in the front, a girl I've been discipling a bit, came forward, or at least teaching about Jesus came forward. Then about 4 boys in the back, kind of all at the same time, popped up. And before I knew it, about half the kids in that room stood up and walked forward in front of the room to profess they wanted Jesus to be their Lord. And for them, I don't know what happened in that room, but I'm guarding myself because too many times I've been cynical and said, oh, it must not have been real. Oh, it must not have really made a difference. They were probably just peer pressured. I don't want to do that anymore because the Lord is reviving my faith that God actually has the power to save people here and now and actually wants to use me and each one of you if we're willing to live a life of prayer and take some risks in faith. So I do believe that as God's word says, the harvest is plentiful, and for many kids in that room, it was time.